The government is shut down. The evil is done. It is over. We have won. Wait, they're going to open it back up again? Wait, all we have to do is sit and wait for them to figure out who to screw over. Ah, come on. Anyway, we are on day 3 of the government shutdown. Day 2, rather. I'm sorry. It's only October 2nd. We are on day 2 of the government shutdown. We are going to talk about what's happening with this. The ultra cringy headline that CNN came up with off of this. When we get to the other side of the title card, I'll actually kind of do the dramatic movie reading of that CNN tried to make into the headline. But we'll talk about that. The blame game for what's happening here. What's actually happened, where we're at with this. And what happens next on this. We'll actually talk a little bit about the history of government shutdowns as well. And part of the reason that I think that this could come back and bite Republicans in the ass. But we'll talk about all of this, where it goes, and what we do from here. In other news, YouTube has agreed to pay a $22 million settlement to the Trump campaign and the Trump administration for shutting the channel down on YouTube, which I'm surprised the federal government didn't step in and do the same thing, but we're going to talk about what's happening there. And the Atlantic coming in and saying that this is a crime against free speech, the fact that they have done this and allowed Trump to speak. But we'll talk about that, what's happening with that, and where we go from this. We are going to briefly touch on a series of shootings that happen around the country as very predictably, our friends in the media try to bring gun control back into the forefront under a Republican administration. We'll go over that, what's happening there, and what's going on with that. And Portland is back in the spotlight, with Chicago also being a bit in the spotlight here as well, based on the fact that ICE raids and protests against ICE facilities are in the forefront of the news. We'll talk about that, what's happening there, and what we do with that. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So find some friends, strap yourselves in, and enjoy your midday news crawl, and we will see you on the other side of the title card and on the other side of the break. And it's time for you to go to the places you will be from. Closing time. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Day 2 of the government shutdown. I don't know how much longer we can last with this. The morale is low. In fact, those of us who want to see the healthcare for illegals are losing hope that this could ever happen again. We're in Trump's America. There's day 2. People might actually start getting furloughed at some point here. It's anarchy. It's anarchy in the streets. People are sitting at home completely indifferent to what's going on. We cannot report the news any harder. Pray for us, folks. We're out here in the trenches of our cushy newsrooms, trying to make the people care about the fact that the government is shut down. And it feels like it's a hopeless cause. I'm only slightly joking at that, folks. That is literally how the CNN headline reads first. And once we get down to finance and over with that, that's actually the first one that I put on there. Is just CNN's cringe. Their absolute cringe on this thing. Anyway, good morning. Hi, my name is Jay Edgar. There's a big smile on my face, in spite of the fact that, as those of you who are in the Discord and those of you who are in the know on my personal life, which I don't talk about much on the stream, know that I really liked my F-150. I liked it a lot. A lot of you guys were here when I bought the thing. I was supposed to have Harvey McLeod on for Ed's World in 2020 one day, and we had to go and actually delay the start of the stream because I was an hour and a half away. Well, I was still on the way home at that point, but I had gone an hour and a half away to go buy that truck. It was not exactly a common one, extended cab V8. For that model year, that's not a common configuration at all, so I found that, and it was something that I really wanted, and I mean, it served me well, and it's seen me through some of the best times of my life. I'm a little bit sad to see it go, but it's totaled. Damn deer. But I'm still a little bit chipper off of this because the government, she is shut down. She's done. Unfortunately, they are going to open it back up again. I mean, you all know it was coming. This isn't going to be a long-term thing. It's not going to be a long-lasting thing. It's going to provide some interesting news coverage, definitely. So we'll talk about that and what's happening with that and where we go with that. But yeah, it's been. I tell you, when the government is shut down, I'm always a happy guy. So even though it doesn't really affect me, and we're going to talk because the Washington Post and the New York Times and CNN and ABC are going to try to tell you that this actually matters to you, that this is something that bothers you. Unless you're a federal employee, this really doesn't affect you. And I mean, the national parks, the only thing that affects it is you might have to crap in a dirty toilet while you're taking a hike. For those of you in the South, I'm sorry. For those of you going to Zion right now, stuff like that, I'm sorry. For those of us up in the North, I mean, it's wicked warm right now, but if this goes on through October, that's not really going to be a big thing that you have to deal with. In fact, a lot of, at least state parks I don't know a bunch of really any national parks in Wisconsin, but I know that most of the state parks in Wisconsin shut down this week. Just based on the fact that it's October and there's always a 50% chance there's snow right now. So, but yes, places like Utah and whatnot, down in the glaciers, the Appalachian Trail, stuff like that, national parks like that down south. Yeah, you're probably going to see stuff like that and see things still affect you. But up here, what are you going to do? Where are we going to go? But that's what we have for there. So let's check in with the live chat, see what you guys are doing. You guys are already active this morning, so thank you very much for that. Vong is saying he's first and Luna C's second, which I reminded you, if you guys don't stop fighting over who is first, I'll shut this chat down like the federal government or something. Luna C says, I love government shutdowns. Can't pass laws. Well, technically they can, actually, because Congress, due to the 26th? I don't know, the one that deals with congressional pay and the fact that they can't, stop their own paychecks during a government shutdown. That says that they also still have to be able to come into session so they can basically pass a continuing resolution. So yes, they can still pass laws in the midst of this. Alright, Bong has switched over to Kick because Twitch is a bitch. Did you come in the beginning or the end? It's been so long since I've been here at the start. Yeah, Trying to do some midday stuff. I get better viewership at this time slot, I've noticed. Like, I consistently pull double and hold double digits throughout the stream. Whereas at 7 in the morning, it starts at 4 to 5 to 6, stays there for an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then like right at the end it kicks back up. So, which by the way, I have not texted Quest Fanning yet and said that we're live, because he'll come back and join us. Let's do that. And I mean, it was also fine for me as well, because while I was getting everything organized, there were several people who were trying to get a piece of my attention, some family stuff going on, some stuff with the replacement for the truck that I had to put down this week, stuff like that. My phone just kept going off and going off and going off and going off, and also Ed Jr. was going off a little bit too, and she's the only one that actually matters in the midst of this. I really wanted to put the rest of the stuff off until after stream, but, you know, we don't put Ed Jr. off. She's cute. I like her. But that's what we have for that. Palm says, Trump is a crime against himself. The government is a crime against everybody. Lunacy says, me got no friends by choice. Well, that's sad. Ed is wasting away. Arbolt says, shut down too. Electric Boogaloo. Yeah, pray hard. Ed Jr. is still fed. That's all that matters. At first I saw that Ed Jr. is a fed. Alright, anyway, let's get down into the meat of things here. So we're going to start with finance, as we always do. We're going to look at the Dow. I got an article from yesterday. I'm going to actually refresh the page before we switch it and see what comes up for today. If you like what you see, do comment in the live chat. And I'm going to get the Rumble chat up here as well, because we're not looking at that right now. But the more you chat in the live chat, the better we do in the algos. So absolutely, please give me your opinion. Even if you hate me, it still boosts me up in the algo. So I got a nice can of Yoo-Hoo over here today too. This stuff is so good. I didn't know it came in a can until like last year. I didn't even know they still sold it until last year, honestly. But I'm glad that it's here. Okay, I just backed up here. All right, let's get started. New scene. I gotta get the rest of my scenes loaded into my stream deck. Excuse me. I got a stream deck for my birthday in April, and I've loaded 3 OBS scenes into it, and no sounders. Now, mind you, those of you who are in the know and in the loop on my personal life know that the end of May, or middle of June on until, well, basically now has been a little bit of a wild ride for me. A lot of new stuff happening and a lot of dangerous stuff happening, and a point where I thought that I was going to be coming home alone, so I was very, very afraid of that. So yeah, the stream deck went on the back burner for a little while. Alright, let's put this scene up here just so I don't have to sit here and look at myself twice. Check all of our stream rates. Everything looks good. It looks good. Let's get started. On the Dow. The Dow dropped today. It is starting to climb itself back up. It actually shot up at the open, and then it just dumped off a cliff, and it's starting to do its thing. Dow now sitting at 46,393.41, previous close of yesterday at 46,441.10, which in the first day of a government shutdown, the fact that it was very, very much in the black for almost the entire day tells me that maybe the shutdown here has no power, but we will see what happens with that. Who's going to give me some good news for the day? Can I do this one? Or is this one going to be a behind the paywall thing? Live chat back up here too. Quest Fanning is here. Quest Fanning is here now. I didn't get a chance to tech him. Glowing Baby. Maybe. Tengu. That's a Wizard of the Oz reference. Goats and Scarves is here. With the salute. Those of you who know Ed's personal life knows that Palm is the bomb. Yeah, she's learning a lot from us. Oh, there was another one that I wanted to When we were talking about the truck, yeah, I did meet Palm in that truck. I will miss that one. That was a good one. That one served me well. Kept going, little to low maintenance. Yeah. All right. From IBD, stock market today, indices lose some. Early lift, Tesla reverses lower, satellite play breaks out. This is a little bit of a live coverage, but let's see what they have going on here. From Scott Latonin, David Saito Chung, the Dow Industrial Average and other major stock indices opened higher, then stumbled a bit on Thursday as the government shutdown suspended the release of the Labor Department's weekly jobless claims. Yeah, with everything going on and what they're trying to figure out with the race, I'm sorry, the interest rates, not the race, it's not an election year yet. Yeah, I could actually see where that's going to make our market stumble, because if they can't release the jobless claims, well, then we can't come back and figure out what to do with the rates. Tesla jumped sharply in the stock market today after the company reported better than expected vehicle deliveries, but then reversed. After the opening bell, the Dow was up 0.1%, but the 30-stock blue chip gauge then succumbed to a loss of around 0.2%. The S&P also forfeited a minimum opening gain of 0.2% to trade 0.2% lower, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq saw a 0.4% lift shrink to less than 0.1%. The 10-year Treasury yield rose to about 4.12%. Oil prices fell as West Texas Intermediate futures traded around $61.05 a barrel. If we're at $61.05 a barrel, why are we still at $2.79 in Wisconsin? Because that's the prices that we were getting at $69 a barrel. So, hey, $2.45 when, please? All right, Tesla started the session up more than 2%, but switched gears. And why would they switch gears? Teslas don't have gears. They have a constantly metered electric motor. They don't have a transmission. And was down more than 1% in recent action. Tesla remained in a strong short-term rally after breaking out past an early buy point of 367.71 within a very deep and long cup pattern. So at this point, wait to see if it holds near the top of that base, showing a high of 488.54. That, in fact, is the long-term winning stock's all-time peak. Elsewhere, AST Space Mobile was one of the market's early strong winners as the large cap broke out of a cup with handle formed since mid-July. Shares jumped nearly 10% in recent action. Volume sprinted 60% above normal levels for now. Compared with its average turnover over the past 50 sessions, the satellite-based broadband network provider is highly speculative. It's logged less than $5 million in revenue in the trailing 4 quarters. But, I mean, if it's a startup, especially if they're sitting here trying to compete with the big boys and they're only logging $5 million worth of revenue, I mean, it's not cheap to put a satellite in space, you guys, so they might just still be hanging out on what they need to start with. So why would Tesla switch gears? Yeah, exactly. They don't have gears to switch. All right, from yesterday on the finance, stock market today, Dow and the S&P notch records as Wall Street shrugs at shutdown amps up rate cut bets. So the shutdown actually pushed the Dow up yesterday and all the other major indices as well. U.S. stocks rose to fresh records on Wednesday after the government entered its first shutdown in 7 years. Investors turned their focus to weak ADP jobs data, which helped cement bets on a near-term rate cut. The S&P advanced 0.3% to notch its first record close above 6,700. The Dow gained nearly 0.1% to post its second consecutive record close. Meanwhile, the tech-heavy Nasdaq increased 0.4%, erasing losses earlier this session. Non-dairy chocolate drink. The major gauge turned positive after a sluggish morning and after stocks closed out their strongest third quarter since 2020 on Tuesday. Yes, we are going into the fourth quarter of the year right now as well. Wall Street largely shrugged off the expected economic impact of the government shutdown, at least for now. The longer it lasts, the greater the likely hit to growth as the fallout reaches the businesses that rely on the federal government's daily output. The shutdown comes at a potentially perilous time for the economy, as the ADP's monthly employment report, an especially high focus Wednesday, showed private payrolls unexpectedly declined last month. Yeah, there was a big downward revision. I did not put that on the stack today because I didn't know enough about what caused it. And I don't want to opine on that if I don't know what's going on with that one. But they revised that down like a bunch. The private sector lost 32,000 jobs, the report said, missing expectations for a gain of over 50,000. Yeah, I would say that that's quite the miss there. That report likely spurred further bets on coming interest rate cuts from the Federal Reserve. However, around 99% of the bets are on a cut later this month, and expectations for a December cut, now at 87%, also saw a big jump. In Washington, agencies will now implement contingency plans and send hundreds of thousands of workers home, amid warnings from President Trump that a lot of firings are to come. A lot of firings. They're going to come. And I'm going to come. It's going to be great. Markets are watching the developments closely among the agencies whose work is set to be frozen, as the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which gathers and reports economic data key to the Federal Reserve policy decisions. The BLS was set to release the September jobs report on Friday, but the non-farm payrolls update is likely to be delayed, as BLS plans to completely cease operations with just one full-time employee kept in post. So, that is your finance for the day. We have famous death before we get started, as we always do. Somebody I know a little bit about, actually somebody I didn't even realize was still alive. Sometimes that happens when we do the famous deaths at the top of the show. But apparently she was, until yesterday at least. Conservationist Jane Goodall, whose work revolutionized the study of primates, has died. From Trisha Escobedo. Yeah, honestly, I thought that she did most of her work in the early part of the 20th century. Not the latter part. That's why I didn't think she was still alive, because I thought she was like in her 30s and the 40s. Hold on. I don't have a pen on me, but I do have a dry erase marker. Arvold, you've got that one. I don't know why my dry erase marker is in here either. It's supposed to be in the kitchen where the dry erase board is. I wish I knew where my pants were, because I've got 2 fountain pens in my pants. Actually, I don't know where my desk drawer is, because I was going to go through that and put those in here, but there should be some fountain pens in there too. They're all red, but they should be in there. Arvold, your wish is my command. I should make that bigger. There you go. It's on the list. And the chat in the live chat starts over again. Alright. Jane Goodall, whose lifelong work as a primatologist helped broaden the world's understanding of animal behavior and emotions, has died, her institute said Wednesday. She was 91. Her field studies with chimpanzees not only broke barriers for women and changed the way scientists study animals, but documented emotions and personality traits within these primates that blurred the line between humans and the animal kingdom. I mean, you should see the emotions that we experience from the black and white menace that runs around our house. I'm looking at a picture of him right now. She passed away due to natural causes in California during a speaking tour in the U.S., according to her institute. Yeah, 'cause she was English, wasn't she? Dr. Goodall's discoveries as an ethologist revolutionized science, and she was a tireless advocate for the protection and restoration of our natural world, the Institute said in a statement on social media. Goodall was appointed Dame of the British Empire in 2004. There you go, she is English. Today I learned Jane Goodall was a hottie when she was younger. That I did know already, actually. Oh, I hear the baby. And awarded the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2005. She was also named a Messenger of Peace by the UN in 2002. Goodall worked tirelessly for our planet and all its inhabitants, leaving an extraordinary legacy for humanity and nature, the UN said on X as it mourned her death. Now, what I will say about Goodall, and I don't, especially given the fact that I thought that she was well older than what she actually was she embraced the environmentalism pitch that I've always told people to do and the stuff that I try to do myself. You know, so much of climate change study and everything else that's going on right now centers around, okay, well, pay the government taxes to go stop climate change. Let the government come and do the climate change stuff. Pay them and they'll do it all for you. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to do anything. Just pay the government more money and they will do it for you. Whereas Jane Goodall, in addition to her animal studies, for her environmental protection, she was out there. Plant the tree, clean up the trash. You know, she was doing the things. And that's one of the things that I did like about her. You know, if you want to be an environmentalist, it's not about paying organizations and governments to do stuff. Sometimes it's just, you see the crushed up Fleischmann's vodka bottle laying in the street, and you pick it up and you toss it in your recycle bin. So, good on her. And good on her being named as Dame of the Empire. Yeah, as well. She lived a good life. Goodall appears on a television special, Miss Goodall in the World of Chimpanzees, originally broadcast on CBS, Wednesday, December 22nd, 1965, in the Gombe Stream National Park, Tanzania. CBS Photo Archive, Getty Images. So she was actually born in the 30s, given the fact that she was 91. Which, and again, I thought that she was doing her work at that time, not being born at that time. So, good thing Palm is done making baby food. Rest in peace, Jane Goodall. Alright. Now, we start with the real dark stuff. And as promised, we're going to start with CNN. Got a couple of different ones from CNN, but I want to start with this one. October 1st, 2025, day one coverage of the government shutdown. We're having trouble writing our scripts to make the people care. We're having trouble telling them why they should care about what's happening with the fact the government is shut down. I mean, do these people not know that they might not be able to go to a national park right now? And they might not be safe in the national park? Won't somebody please think of the elderly who would be walking through the national park right now? Why won't anybody think about these people? This is a live updater. I don't typically use these. But this is from, they have a list, holy crap. Hannah Park, Michael Williams, Maureen Chowdhury, Elise Hammond, Adiltul Sangal Kitmar, Morgan Rimmer, Manu Raju, Veronica Strakwalersi, Annie Grayer, and Tori B. Powell over at CNN. First off on there, should Trump use a shutdown to fire federal workers? Hear what Mike Johnson thinks.
Do you think that the OMB, the executive branch, should use this shutdown as an excuse to permanently fire federal workers?
Well, I can tell you right now, the president has been a benevolent president. He is mitigating the harm right now. OMB has not come out of the blocks and fired a bunch of people. That's not what's happening. But do you think they should? Well, it provides an opportunity. Chuck Schumer has provided the Trump White House with an opportunity to downsize the government on priorities and policies and personnel that they deem to be non-essential. Now, Chuck Schumer has very different priorities about the federal government than
What's your priority?
Republicans.
You're the Speaker of the House. You can
I
say
certainly want to downsize the size and scope of the federal government.
So you think that people who are maybe furloughed right now, or even working without pay, should be on the chopping block for permanent dismissal?
I wouldn't say that, because the people that are furloughed right now are hardworking American federal workers.
Who should be fired during the shutdown?
I don't know. You'd have to show me a proposal of what is being presented.
I don't have a proposal.
I don't have it either, but I have a conference call with Russ Vought at OMB in about 2 hours, and we're going to ask him about the details of that. But I'll tell you right now.
So this is happening.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to find out what his plans are, but I will tell you this. Right now, who's being harmed are women, infants, and children. Their nutrition program is stalled. Veterans who are not getting their services right now, and very important services like suicide prevention. That's a day-to-day thing.
No question.
They're unfunded.
I mean, it's horrible.
FEMA's not funded right now for insurance
That
policies.
is temporary. So I just... You're going to talk to Russ Vought, and obviously we're going to ask what happens after that. But last week, he sent a memo directing agencies to start drafting plans
to
do
his job.
Just this.
So when you're the director,
but you have a point of view. Can you, on that phone call, say with him, please don't do this? This is not appropriate?
No, because look, if Russ Vought has to make tough decisions. Whoever is the director of the Office of Management and Budget in a scenario like this has to make tough choices. They have to decide. They're tasked under law. They must decide what are essential services and what are not. What are policies and proposals that are priorities.
It's usually temporary under a shutdown. We're talking about permanently firing people.
Well, I'm not sure that hasn't happened before, but...
So, we're going to talk a bit about the permanent firings here at the bottom of this topic. I do want to point out as well, given the doom and gloom and the fact that the government is shut down and we don't know how to make people care about this and talk about this and be outraged at Republicans about this. CNN has done the same thing they did with the COVID, and it was the death counter during the COVID, as long as Trump was in office. The government shutdown counter at the time of this interview was at 12 hours, 9 minutes, 15 seconds, you guys. It's horrible. The horror! Now they're still doing the counter. 1 day, 12 hours, 44 minutes. The horror. The horror. So, for the most part, you're not going to be affected by government shutdown. For the most part, for this first month, all of your entitlements, benefits are going to go through because of the fact that they were distributed to the state level long before this ever happened. Now, they're going to try to use Social Security, Medicaid, things like that to go back and try to panic people. But no, as of right now, all of that was already prepaid months and months ago. So that's still going to keep going. And Social Security actually cannot be stopped under a government shutdown. That's the other thing. And federal employee pay for non-essential workers can be stopped, and much of that is going to be. And just like we saw it the last time through, if this goes for a longer period of time, then, well, the next thing we know is we start wondering how people go back and pay the rent, pay the mortgage, etc. coming back out of this. And, well, we got to continue to watch and see what happens with this. But for the most part, national parks, monuments get shut down. You can still go into them. You just can't drive in. You can walk in. And yeah, like I said at the top of the show, if you try to go to the can, the bathrooms might be locked, or they might just be filthy and dirty. And that is what it is. CNN starting with a list of national parks and monuments that are still open. Grand Canyon is still open. Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, the National Mall. That's new because Obama shut that down during his lengthy one. Utah National Parks are still open. Colorado National Parks. Colorado National Parks are actually still collecting fees and everything too. They're going to stay open until their fee revenue, so their local revenue, runs out. South Dakota National and State Parks. The tourism department looks like they're going to be covering some of that as well. So, FBI Agents Association warns government shutdown could imperil national security in spite of the fact that they're all considered essential workers and they're not stopping operations. Yeah, you didn't think you were going to get away from the federal police that quickly, did you? Amid an unprecedented range of national security and criminal threats, the organization, representing thousands of current FBI agents, warned its members on Wednesday that the current federal government shutdown could potentially endanger the safety of Americans. In a message to its members obtained by CNN, the FBI Agents Association said a shutdown can undermine the FBI's ability to perform its duties at a time when the country faces an unprecedented range of national security and criminal threats, from fentanyl trafficking and terrorism to violent crimes against children and cyber attacks. The group also warned that curtailed operational resources can disrupt investigations, surveillance, forensic analysis, and partnerships with state, local, and international law enforcement. Okay, that paragraph in and of itself leads me to sit here and think, okay, well, what's the downside? Do we have a downside here? Do we have a negative going on? Agent Association leaders said they also sent a letter to Congress asking that mission-critical federal law enforcement personnel working during the shutdown be exempt from having their pay withheld. Noting a lapse in paychecks can threaten the financial stability of agents and further risk jeopardizing their security clearance. And again, the last 3 times that we've done this, the FBI has not been affected. So do keep that in mind as we go. But yes, that is CNN's live updater trying to tell you why you should be afraid and imperiled by all of this. Fox News telling us what the Trump administration wants to do to reshape the federal government during said shutdown. From Emma Colton. The federal government partially shut down early Wednesday after Democrats and Republicans failed to reach an agreement on a funding package. In the lead up to a midnight deadline to pass the budget, Trump warned the admin could make irreversible changes to the federal workforce, most notably through a new wave of fresh layoffs. The president has underscored that he and his allies did not want the government to shut down, but that it opened the door for some good that could come from it. Senate lawmakers failed to reach a spending agreement in time for the end of fiscal year 2025 Tuesday. After a short-term extension of the fiscal year 2025 funding aimed at keeping the government open through November 21st passed the House mainly along party lines earlier in September. Democrats expressed frustration at being shut out of spending negotiations and over the GOP bill's exclusion of enhanced ACA subsidies that were first enacted in 2021 under President Biden. The subsidies, a pinko pox era measure, are set to lapse at the end of 2025 unless Congress takes action, Fox News Digital has reported. So that brings us to a little bit of why we're here, and we need to take a break and talk from this, especially since we're going to be talking about the federal workforce further down in the stack. Why are we here? I have like 7 articles on the blame game and who is to blame and who isn't and who the public thinks is to blame. But on the cold, hard, trying to be nonpartisan side of this, why are we here? It's because while Republicans remain in full control of the government and all of its arms of Congress and even the Supreme Court, as of right now, with the Senate filibuster sitting in place, Democrats can come back and scuttle any spending bill that they want, or any other bill that they want, requiring 60 votes to go over a threshold that allows them to go forward in an act that they call cloture. So at the very last second, and again, I talked about this last week when we started rumoring about the fact that this was going to be happening, at the very last second, Senate Democrats threw in a spending provision that, yes, would have extended the ACA subsidies that were put in place in 2021. Senate Republicans had nothing to do with them shutting down. Biden actually wrote them in so they would stop in 2025, possibly anticipating that his successor was not going to be of his party, and putting that person in a no-win situation in which that person had to sit back and think about, okay, well, what do I do about the fact that I'm not going to have these subsidies and people are going to need insurance? So some of this was already a poison pill put in, but as to my knowledge of everything that's in here, and when they do these continuing resolutions, keep in mind that they're several thousand pages long. So 4chan can come back up and divide the labor, but no one person has read all of this entire spending bill in and of itself, in its entirety, since it dropped about a week ago. But Senate Democrats would only vote on this if they put in a provision for the ACA subsidies. But that's why we are sitting here talking about this right now. As I mentioned last week, if I were the president, not that I'd really be broadcasting to anybody, because every other eligible human being in the country would long have since passed away if I were to be president. But if I were president and we were in a regular full population situation like we are now, from day one, and I would be doing a weekday press conference every single weekday. Those of you who have been here since the beginning of Contemporary know that I am always willing to do that. From day one, I sit here, I put out the live stream, and on the bottom, I have the White House put a ticker, or the news agencies put a ticker, or I put it on a YouTube channel. We put a ticker on the bottom that says, you have this many days until the government runs out of money and we face another shutdown. You have this many days to go call your congressperson and demand a balanced budget. But they always wait till the last second because they want to have their pet projects in. Let's see. Vong says, we're here because our parents got horny. How do you not know this? You're dead yourself. I am. Goats and Scarves says he was made in a lab. Palm says, what are you accusing me of? Arvold says, I reject this hypothesis. My parents didn't have sex. Ew, I was a miracle like Jesus. At least that's what my mother used to call me. She'd say, Jesus Christ, get your ass in this house right now. Nice. Arvold says he can also walk on water if it's not very deep. Let's see. Excuse me. Republicans have since pinned the shutdown blame on Democrats, arguing they refuse to fund the budget as an attempt to reinstate taxpayer-funded medical benefits for illegal immigrants through Democrat lawmakers' continuing resolution, which would include extending the expiring ACA tax credits. Democrat leadership has balked at the claims, throwing their own jabs at Trump and Republican lawmakers as the culprits behind the shutdown and squashing any claims they want to provide health care to illegal immigrants. So, and again, we'll talk a bit about that and the layoffs a little bit later on. But yeah, we're here because we've had 10 months to do this, and nobody wanted to go back and lift a finger to do anything about it. Except for wait till the very last minute and try to throw a pet project into the bottom. Back-to-back pair from the Associated Press. What happens now that the government shutdown is underway? From Kevin Freaking. That freaking guy, Kevin. Seriously. Washington is bracing for what could be a prolonged federal shutdown after lawmakers deadlocked and missed a deadline for funding the government. Republicans supported the short-term measure to fund the government generally at current levels through November 21st, but Democrats blocked it. And again, with all the Doge stuff, I don't know why we're even talking about current levels through November 21st. I mean, that's over a year. I'm sorry, no, this coming November 21st. Insisting the measure address their concerns on health care. Now they want to reverse the Medicaid cuts in Trump's package of the tax breaks and spending reductions from the summer, and they want to extend tax credits to make health insurance premiums more affordable for the millions of people who purchase through the marketplace established by the ACA. There's a lot of people at fault for this one. I will put some of the blame on Trump, by the way, too, and I'm going to be fully on this one here because he should have been doing like I suggested. And if he wants to say that it's Democrats' fault, then we should have been saying this since the beginning of day one of the admin. First press conference. Hey, okay, before we do any business, we remember the horrible continuing resolution from the last term, from Sleepy Joe. This is how many days we have until we run out of government funding. So you have this long to come back out and get your crap together. Hey, as long as you're on Twitch, you can throw me the your Prime sub if you have one. If you have Amazon Prime. I think that'd be pretty cool, yeah? Palm resubscribed this morning here, so that's a little bit of cash in the pocket. Thank you for that. Oh, this makes me want to play Final Fantasy X again. I really enjoyed that playthrough. And as I've mentioned on channel numerous times before, it's especially important to me as that game because of the fact that when Palm and I matched on the online dating site, she matched me and messaged me, and I didn't get back to her for a couple hours because I was finishing. I was at the very, very end of Final Fantasy X on stream. Alright. Washington is bracing for what could be a prolonged federal shutdown after lawmakers deadlocked and missed the deadline for funding the government. Republicans supported the short-term measure. We read all this already. Republicans called the Democratic proposal a non-starter that would cost taxpayers more than $1 trillion. The AP has journalists around the country covering the shutdown of the federal government and what happens in the shutdown. Now that a lapse in funding has occurred, the law requires agencies to furlough their non-accepted employees. Accepted employees, who include those who work to protect life and property, stay in the job, but do not get paid until after the shutdown ends. That has been, just to me, the biggest issue that I've had with the federal government. Not the fact that it's kind of good, but it's kind of not that they're attempting to keep more people employed. It's kind of communistic and it's kind of socialistic, regardless. But also, people and babies do need to eat also. It's one of the things that I accept off of that. But to be told by your employer that you're a non-essential employee, which tells people again that you're on the bubble as soon as anything hits the fan. Oh, that's right, you do have a gifted sub. Damned Man gave you one. That's right. The White House Office of Management and Budget begins the process with instructions to agencies that have a lapse in appropriations has occurred, and they should initiate orderly shutdown activities. The memo went out on Tuesday evening. The CBO estimates roughly 750,000 federal employees could be furloughed each day of the shutdown. 750,000 non-essential employees. Think about that number for just a second. That's a bunch. With the total daily cost of the compensation at roughly $400 million. What government work continues during a shutdown? A great deal, actually. Possibly too much. The FBI, CIA, air traffic controllers, and agents operating at airport checkpoints keep working, so no, the TSA does not go down, and so do members of the armed forces. Those programs that rely on mandatory spending generally continue during a shutdown. Social Security still goes out. Those who are relying on Medicare can still see their doctors, and healthcare providers can be reimbursed. The VA continues during a shutdown. VA medical centers and outpatient clinics will also be open, and VA benefits will be processed and delivered. Burials will continue at VA national cemeteries. Will furloughed workers get paid? Yes, they will. They are all entitled to back pay throughout the extent of this, unless they already took the deferred payout, which again we're going to talk about later on. Yes, in 2019, Congress passed a bill enshrining into law the requirements that furloughed employees get retroactive pay once operations resume, which they were doing so before that without a bill in place. So the bill that they passed actually just protects it, but it's always been a thing. While they eventually will be paid, the furloughed workers and those who remain on the job may have to go without one or more of their regular paychecks depending on how long the shutdown lasts. Service members would also receive back pay for missed paychecks once federal funding resumes. Will I still get mail? Yes, you will. What closes during a shutdown? All administrations get some leeway to choose what services to freeze or maintain in a shutdown. The first Trump admin worked to blunt the impact of what became the country's longest partial shutdown from 18 to 19. But on Tuesday, Trump threatened the possibility of increasing the pain that comes with a shutdown. We can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them, and irreversible by them, Trump said of Democrats. Like cutting the vast number of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. I mean, I would prefer if airports stayed open, we just didn't have any TSA. If it was me. Just saying. Each federal agency develops its own shutdown plan. The plans outline which workers would stay on the job during a shutdown and which would be furloughed. In a provocative move, Trump's budget office threatened the mass firing of federal workers in a shutdown. An office memo said those programs that didn't get funding through Trump's bill this summer would bear the brunt of the shutdown. Agencies should consider issuing a reduction in force notices for those programs whose funding expires that don't have an alternative funding source and are not consistent with the president's priorities, the memo said. You know they're going to take that and run with it too, by the way. You know they're going to take that and run with it. That would be a much more aggressive step than in previous shutdowns when furloughed federal workers returned to their jobs once the shutdown was over. A reduction in force would likely not only lay off employees, but eliminate their positions, which would trigger another massive upheaval in the federal workforce that's already faced major rounds of cuts due to efforts from the Doge and elsewhere in in Trump's Republican admin. So, a few things that are happening there. So, that's kind of what happens with that and where that goes. Another one from the Associated Press. Looming health insurance spikes for millions are at the heart of the government shutdown. From Allie Swenson and Mary Clark Jalonik. The U.S. government shut down Wednesday with Democratic lawmakers insisting that any deal address their healthcare demands, and Republicans saying those negotiations can happen after the government is funded. At issue are tax credits that have made health insurance more affordable for millions of people since the Binko-Pox pandemic. The subsidies, which go to low and middle income people who purchase health insurance through the ACA, are slated to expire at the end of the year. If Congress doesn't extend them, their expiration would more than double what subsidized enrollees currently pay for premiums next year, per an analysis by KFF, a nonprofit that researches health care issues. Democrats have demanded that subsidies, first put in place in 21, extended a year later, be extended again. They also want government funding bill to reverse the Medicaid cuts in Trump's mega bill passed this summer, which did go into effect immediately, but are already driving some states to cut Medicaid payments to healthcare providers. Some Republicans have expressed an openness to extending tax credits, acknowledging many of their constituents will see steep hikes in insurance premiums. But the party's lawmakers in Congress argue negotiations over healthcare will take time, and a stopgap measure to get the government funded is a more urgent priority. What happens if we continue to make the discussions and people can't agree? Well, then they should be forced to. A little bit of Anakin Skywalker reference for you. Briefly from ABC News. It's a live updater, of course, so it's going to be briefly. Government shutdown updates. Trump vows to cut waste as shutdown enters second day. Senate next votes on Friday. From Kevin Shelby, Megan Forrester, Ivan Pereira, and David Brennan. The federal government on Thursday entered its second day of shutdowns amid an impasse on Capitol Hill over competing congressional spending bills. Trump and Republicans have cast blame on the shutdown to Democrats' healthcare demands, while Democrats insist Republicans need to negotiate. The Senate is scheduled to return Friday for another vote. I wonder if air travel would remain safe or if dumb people would take advantage of no checkpoints. Well, it was actually really safe for a really, really, really long time. One of the biggest problems I have with the TSA is that it solved a temporary problem. Much like the FBI. The FBI was never intended to be a permanent government bureau. It was there to solve a problem of bootlegging during Prohibition, and it was never meant to go on for another 100 years. Plus, at this point. It was supposed to go get to the root of the bootlegging, get it fixed, get it figured out, and go away, especially if the source of the bootlegging, which was the 18th Amendment, were to be repealed. The Trump admin has threatened mass layoffs for some federal workers during the shutdown. Senate is to return on Friday after Yom Kippur. The Senate will be out in observance of Yom Kippur on Thursday after it adjourned Wednesday without reaching a deal to end the shutdown. Alright, I know which one of you are out there and thinking it. Bring it to Rumble. I already know which one of you are out there thinking it. The TSA was another one that was incepted to solve a temporary problem. And they never find anything either. Like, they put the test to put dummy stuff through and it gets through. The next vote scheduled for Friday afternoon, when the Senate is expected to once again take up the two bills related to the government funding, the Democrat proposal that includes healthcare provisions and the Republican stopgap bill. Kind of want to take a screenshot of that part of the article and put it in the Discord. Just to have a little bit of fun with my buddy Midget B. You know what? I'm going to do it. You're going to watch me screw with one of my Discord users live on air. Happy Yom Kippur, by the way, if you celebrate. Take it right there, put it in a not safe for work channel with no context, and just walk away. Some of you in the Discord, let me know if something funny goes with that. But yes, they're going to come back out and try to hammer this out tomorrow. Trump calls for culling dead wood in government and shutdown. What am I doing live on air? I'm screwing with Midget B. Just like we did when we were at the hospital for a month. President Trump on Wednesday evening called on Republicans to use the shutdown, the first one in almost 7 years, to cull potential dead wood. Dead wood. From within the federal government. Republicans must use this opportunity of Democrat forced closure to clear out deadwood, wasted fraud, Trump said on social media, a quote later shared by official White House accounts. Billions of dollars can be saved, Trump added. Yeah, we'll talk about that later on down. So, skip! We talked briefly over this one. Let's talk a bit more from the BBC. Jobs, travel, national parks. What impact will the U.S. shutdown have? The U.S. federal government is shut down after Republican and Democrat lawmakers failed to resolve a budget standoff. The impasse affected the funding of government operations through October and beyond, and it's poised to cause widespread disruption for Americans in areas ranging from air travel to zoo visits. We can't go to the zoo, the effing zoo is closed. The political gridlock is also expected to put 40% of the federal workforce, about 750,000 people, on unpaid leave. That's the number of people the government deems unimportant. Non-essential. Federal shutdown could hit flyers in a variety of ways, potentially leading to long security queues and delays caused by unpaid air traffic controllers choosing to stay home rather than work for free. Air traffic control and Transportation Safety Administration workers are considered essential, so they will continue to work, but they will not be paid until the shutdown ends. No worker pay for federal workers. National parks with no staff. A visit to the zoo, the famous Smithsonian Institute museums will stay open until at least Monday, October 6th. On the Smithsonian website, the organization said it had money available from years prior to help it keep operating. Animals at the National Zoo will continue to be fed and cared for according to a Smithsonian, which runs the zoo. But the popular webcams will be shut off, as they have been deemed non-essential by zoo staff, so viewers won't be able to peek at the pandas, lions, elephants, and naked mole rats. Medicare and Medicaid social health programs for the elderly and poor will continue, but staffing shortages could lead to some interruptions. Food assistance programs will also be impacted, with the Supplemental Nutritional Program for Women, Infants, and Children expected to rapidly run out of funds. I was understanding that was a local level program. So, the SNAP program is expected to continue for longer, but the risk of running out of funding. Emergency disaster relief will also be largely unaffected. However, other work done by disaster agencies will be impacted. The National Flood Insurance Program will be closed, delaying some mortgages on properties that require policies from the government-run program. So, a few things that will be affected by all of this. Yes, your mail will still come. I'm gonna come! Associated Press, government shutdown takes hold with mass layoffs looming and no end in sight. From Lisa Mascaro, Mary Claire Jalonik, and Stephen Groves. Yeah, screwing with midgets is always a good time. Yeah, it's always fun. Let him sit and figure out why so much of the Congress is off for Yom Kippur. I'm sure he'll have some good explanations. Oh, excuse me. I don't know why I'm tired. Ed Jr. actually slept for most of the night last night. Excuse me. The federal government was thrown into a shutdown Wednesday with no easy endgame in sight, as Democrats held firm to their demands to salvage healthcare subsidies. Then Trump and Republicans in Congress have dismissed as something to possibly discuss later. Do not come. Do not come. I'm gonna come. I remember that mashup video. The federal government, let's see, Democrats held firm to their demands to salvage healthcare subsidies that Trump and Republicans in Congress have dismissed as something to possibly discuss later. The White House threatened mass layoffs of federal workers rather than simply the normal furloughs in a matter of days, seizing the chance to slash government. Blame was being cast on all sides. No new talks were scheduled after the president failed this week to secure a deal with congressional leaders. Oh, that's where the drawer is that's got my pen in it. Right there. I'll have to find my way under a desk. Maybe I know how to do that. Let's be honest. If this thing drags on, warned J.D. Vance during a visit to the White House briefing room, we're going to have to lay people off. Roughly 750,000 workers were expected to be furloughed and some fired. By the admin, many offices will be shuttered, perhaps permanently, as the president promises to zero in on programs that Democrats like. Trump's deportation agenda is likely to run full speed ahead, while education, environmental, and other services sputter. Oh, they have to go back and put that in there. Well, he might shut down education because stupid people vote Republican. The economic fallout could ripple across the nation. Democrats believe their health care campaign is what House Leader Hakeem Jeffries called a moral issue, but cracks are emerging within the party. A Senate vote on the GOP plan to fund the government without the health subsidies failed, but it drew some Democratic support. Yeah, I think the Dems actually understand the fact that their messaging is going to fall flat on this one, because they've spent so many of the past shutdowns. We'll talk about that in just a bit here. Blaming Republicans for using the filibuster to shut everything down, and now they're sitting here doing the same thing. And people notice when they do that. So that's where that goes. Another one from the Associated Press. Government shutdown continues as Senate Democrats hold firm on healthcare demands. Live updater again. From Bridget Brown, Bernard McGee, Curtis Yee, Sam Burdett, and Nell Clark. The Senate adjourned for the day on Wednesday with no resolution on how to reopen the government. Blame was being cast on all sides on the first day of the shutdown. A vote to end the government shutdown failed earlier this week, as Democrats in the Senate held firm to the party's demands to fund health care subsidies that Trump and Republicans refused to extend. Maybe when I go to town later, I get to go listen to old Benny Boy talk about this one. I don't care for Ben Shapiro, but I do like his legal takes. At issue are tax credits that have made health insurance through the ACA more affordable. We know that. Impact on federal agencies. Department of Agriculture, 85,907 workers, 42,256 workers furloughed to 49%. CDC, 13,000 workers, 8,400 workers furloughed, 64%. Department of Commerce, almost 43,000 workers, 34,000 furloughed, 81%. Department of Defense, 741,477 workers, 334,904 workers furloughed for 45%. Can you elaborate on what you said there, Quest Fanning, what they hide the cost from the consumers? I'd like to know where you were going with that, if possible. Let's put the glasses back on here. Put the glasses back on and get some more caffeine. It's a great old time. And that's just four departments right there. So, let's see what else do we have. In a completely symbolic move, and a part of the reason that I don't really like Ted Cruz that much. Hold on, let's get a like and a repost on this one from Quest Fanning, advertising to his 13 million followers on Twitter. Due to Schumer's shutdown over... This is Ted Cruz, so we gotta do Ted Cruz voice. Due to Schumer's shutdown over his deranged demand that we provide free health care for illegal aliens, and that we reverse the Republican reforms blocking handouts to able-bodied adults who refuse to work, I've asked the financial clerk of the Senate to hold my salary. This is from Ted Cruz. Dear Mr. Ruckner, the financial clerk of the Senate, for the duration of the current lapse in appropriations, please hold my salary check for a pickup in the disbursing office. It's not right for members of Congress to be paid during a shutdown if service members aren't. Thank you for your attention to this request, signed by Ted Cruz. Now, I understand what he's trying to do, but the problem is that it's worthless grandstanding because of who Ted Cruz is, how long he's been in the Senate, and what he has amassed in and out of the Senate beforehand. Ted Cruz, if he needs to, can go sell stocks or another portfolio item or a piece of land that he owns or something. I mean, he's not without funds. He's not without his means and his ability. And it's appreciative that he's coming back here trying to bring attention to this. But the problem with it, of course, is the fact that it's completely worthless when you look at it in the big picture item, because, yeah, he can go and forego his paycheck. And he and his family will be fine while they do. And, of course, just like the federal workers he's trying to step up and protect, he will get back pay from this as well. The problem is, of course, is that your entry-level data enterer that's working in the Department of Agriculture doesn't have a pot to piss in and will also be going without a paycheck. Now, if you're taking your paycheck as a senator and dispersing it out among the people of your district who are furloughed by this, then I would say, yes, you've got some honor here. You're doing something good with your money, and you yourself are not taking it out of principle. And what's even better is you won't get that back. You help keep people alive, you get everything taken care of, and you don't get that money back. That is a real gesture towards the American people. Like what Trump does when he says, I don't need to take a salary, and then turns around and donates his salary out to usually various veterans charities. Well, what Cruz is doing is really basically symbolic and, I hate to say it, kind of stupid. Lawmakers, including Smucker, request pay withheld during the shutdown. This is from News Radio 1314 out of Reading, I believe, Pennsylvania. iHeartRadio is listed as the author. In response to the ongoing shutdown, several lawmakers have opted to have their pay withheld until the government reopens. Among them is Rep. Lloyd Smucker, who announced his decision on Wednesday. He joins other federal lawmakers such as Ted Cruz, Andy Kim, and Elise Stefanik in refusing their paychecks until this pay period. And again, you're going to get all that money back. Like, this is not going to affect you, and you've got the assets that you can sit on, whether realistically gained or ill-gained, that you can go back and you're going to be fine if you're Ted Cruz. Or if you're Lloyd Smucker, or Andy Kim, or anything else, or Elise Stefanik. You'll be fine. So how about taking that paycheck and donating to people in your district? Maybe sell a couple of those assets that you have that's keeping you alive and go send that to people in your district too. From the Associated Press, Trump uses government shutdown to dole out firings and political punishment. From Lisa Mascaro, Trump has seized on the government shutdown as an opportunity to reshape the federal workforce and punish detractors. There it is. It's not just a letting people go because the government was bloated too far over the last administration. It's the fact that he's committing political retribution against the people who have wronged him in the government. Because it's the Associated Press, and of course that's what they have to go back and report. By threatening mass firings of workers and suggesting irreversible cuts to programs important to Democrats. Rather than simply furlough employees, as is usually done during any lapse of funds, the White House press secretary bubbleheaded bleach blonde said layoffs were imminent. The Office of Management and Budget announced it was putting on hold roughly $18 billion of infrastructure funds for the New York subway extension and Hudson Tunnel projects in the hometown of the Democratic leaders of the U.S. and Senate. Oh goodness, why did I just hit a wall? Trump has marveled over the handiwork of the budget director. He can trim the budget to a level that you couldn't do any other way, the Republican president said at the start of the week of OMB Director Russ Vought, who was also the chief architect of Project 2025 Conservative Policy Playbook. Because again, we have to come back out and it's all got to be evil Republican and Project 2025. So they're taking a big risk by having a shutdown, Trump said during an event at the White House. Today is day 2 of the shutdown. On the layoffs and the furloughs, a massive walkout alert. Over 100,000 federal employees are expected to resign, setting what could be the largest exodus in U.S. history. Those are career bureaucrats who don't want accountability. The system is finally being exposed for what it is. The question is this a crisis or the reset America needs? It's neither, by the way. The 100,000 federal employees who are expected to resign right now, setting up what could be the largest exodus in U.S. history, are the 100,000 people who took the extended deferment, which is actually coming up here, came up yesterday actually. And now, yes, they're all free agency because they're no longer employed because they voluntarily said, no, we're not going to come back out and stay employed off of this. We'll take the payout, we'll take everything, and we'll use the time to go back and find a new job. Or sit on our butts for 6 months or whatever the hell it wound up being. I do like that they have these nice printed signs every time they come back out and try to protest. Try to protest something that actually benefits many of them. The Federal Workers Union say they'll accept severe hardship if they can stick it to Trump during the shutdown. This is from the Daily Caller. Real briefly from this one, because this is a very, very liberal rag. And always has been. Excuse me. From Adam Pack. Dozens of federal unions said they're prepared to back a government shutdown despite a funding lapse, risking severe consequences, including job loss for their members. The Federal Unionist Network, or FUN, if you will, and 35 national, state, and local unions sent a letter to top Democratic leaders on Monday, urging party leaders to hold the line against a clean GOP spending bill less than 48 hours after the government is set to potentially partially shut down. Senate Leader Chuck U. Schumer has thus far expressed willingness. Excuse me. Let's see. Despite the prospect of a new round of firings of federal workers foregoing pay for an indefinite period. A government shutdown is never Plan A, the letter from the FUN and 35 co-sponsoring unions reads. Federal workers and the communities that we serve will face severe hardship, but federal workers will willingly forego paychecks in the hopes of preserving the programs we've devoted our lives to administering. In order to save our services today, we need to send a message to this admin that enough is enough, the letter continues. Oh, excuse me. The government will partially shut down Wednesday at 12:01 a.m. if lawmakers do not pass a stopgap measure to temporarily fund the government operations until both parties can strike a longer-term spending deal. Senate Democrats chose to filibuster a House-passed 7-week stopgap bill offered by Republicans on September 19th, despite the measure largely continuing Biden-era funding levels. And yes, that's the other side of that, is they basically stay on the Biden level for 7 more months while they sit back and try to figure it out. And Democrats still said, hell no, we won't go. Though Republicans wield a 53 to 47 majority in the Senate, most legislation, including government funding bills, needs 60 votes to pass the upper chamber. And a shocking no one turn of events, though, they turned this into this is a good idea and this will stick it to the Trump government, to hell no, sue them for us. Labor unions sue OMB and OPM for unlawful threats of mass layoffs ahead of the shutdown. From Faith Wardwell. As the federal government hurtled toward a shutdown on Tuesday, 2 unions representing federal workers sued the Trump admin over threats to conduct mass layoffs while the government is closed. The unions allege in the lawsuit the Office of Management and Budget and its director Russell Vaught broke the law by directing federal agencies to prepare reduction in force plans for potential shutdowns. Well, they should have those anyway. It shouldn't just be at the last seconds coming up to a shutdown. It should be a constant thing. We should always know if we have to go back and free up money, who goes first, who goes second, who goes third. The lawsuit also names the Office of Personnel Management along with its director Scott Kapoor for issuing instructions that federal employees may work during the shutdown in order to carry out the mass layoffs. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California by the American Federation of Government Employees and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. I don't know why they had to go all the way to California for that. They could have filed the same thing in DC and got the same result. Excuse me, what the hell am I so tired? So they said, no, this will really be good for us, basically as a bluff. And then they said, oops, changed your mind. A couple of these we read already. One of the parts of this that I strongly dislike. White House freezes funds for Democratic states and shutdown SLAPP. Which, by the way, is not going to fly against the Equal Protection of Law amendments. Hate to tell you this. From Dave Morgan, Bo Erickson, Nolan McCaskill, and Richard Cohen. Better thing with that, though, too, is the fact that, I mean, if you look at the major map of the country, you have strong amounts of Republicans in every single state. And even in the bluest states, you just have little pockets of blue along a vast red swath. But don't worry, land doesn't vote. Trump's admin on Wednesday throws $26 billion for Democratic-leaning states following through on a threat to use the government shutdown to target Democratic priorities. Dude, this ain't it, by the way. This is some Hitler-level stuff right here. Just telling you. Excuse me. The targeted programs included $18 billion for transit projects in New York, home to Congress's two top Democrats, and $8 billion for a green energy project in 16 Democrat-run states, including California and Illinois. J.D. Vance, meanwhile, warned that the admin might extend its purge of federal workers if the shutdown lasts more than a few days. The moves make clear that Trump would carry out his threat to take advantage of the shutdown to punish his political opponents and extend control over the $7 trillion federal budget established by the U.S. Congress and the domains of, established by the Constitution and the domains of Congress. The government shutdown, the 15th since '81, suspended scientific research, financial oversight, environmentally clean efforts, and a wide range of other activities. Dude, that seriously just came out of nowhere. Some of the 750,000 federal workers that were ordered not to work, while others, such as troops and Border Patrol agents, began to work without pay. The VA said it would provide burials at national cemeteries, but would not erect headstones or mow the grass. So we'll get kind of a wild look at this one. It'll be a jungle out there, folks. Do I still have any Mountain Dew in here? I'm trying. I need to be more heavily caffeinated. Vance said at a White House briefing that the admin would be forced to resort to layoffs if the shutdown lasts more than a few days, adding to the 300,000 who will be pushed out by December. Previous shutdowns have not resulted in permanent layoffs. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office said it would lay off 1% of its 14,000 employees. So 140 employees in total. According to an internal letter seen by Reuters, Hakeem Jeffries, the top Democrat in the House, said the funding freeze for the subway and harbor projects in his home state of New York would throw thousands out of work. Top Senate Democrat Chuck U. Schumer, also from New York, said Trump was targeting regular Americans for partisan aims. And yes, based on the partisan map of the country, Open image in new tab. Apparently Chrome has decided it wants to be done with me. Yeah, that's what they're going with when they talk about this, and yeah, you're even punishing some of your own. I mean, other than deep blue Massachusetts, you've got big swaths of red in all states and support in all 50 states as well. Tom Tillis said he was concerned the freezing of infrastructure funds for New York could make it harder for Congress to exit the shutdown. They need to be really careful with that because they can create a toxic environment here, Tillis said. So hopefully they're working with their leader and the leader with them on not creating more work to get us out of this posture. Might have to go find a video. Because I've drank a large amount of liquid since I sat down. Everything looked good at first, but from the Washington Post, we asked 1,000 Americans who they blame for the shutdown. And this isn't unimportant, with people on the blue side saying holding funds hostage, unreasonable requests against anything Trump. And people on the red saying punishing regular Americans, Republicans did not negotiate, Republicans have all the power. How concerned are Americans about the partial shutdown of the federal government? Whom do they blame for causing it? The Washington Post texted a nationally representative sample of 1,010 people on Wednesday to ask. The Post poll found significantly more Americans blame Trump and Republicans for the shutdown than Democrats. Though many say they were not sure, people expressed moderate concern about the shutdown's impact at this early stage, with someone concerned. The most common answer, a large majority support Democrats call to extend the federal health insurance subsidies. In general, though just under half support the party demanding it, this if it extends the government shutdown, which is very true. I said that I would talk about it at the top of the show. We're going to talk about it now. Who is to blame right now? There are a lot of people to blame in the midst of this one. This is not an easy one to answer. My biggest blame that I have on this is not on Senate Democrats. They're the second biggest point of blame that I have off of this. And President Trump made it a major campaign promise of his first term that we were not going to have any continuing resolutions anymore, that this was all going to be a balanced budget, and that's what we were going to have until the end of time. That was what he told us. That's what he said that we were going to be doing, and that's how he said everything was going to be going on, was just constantly only balanced budgets and nothing else anymore. He's had the bully pulpit since January, and this has been an ongoing thing since January, that we've already been in a CR. Because this started under the Biden admin. He even went as far as to say in 2018, this is the last omnibus, I'm not going to sign anymore. You're only going to bring me a balanced budget and nothing else. And then he signed 3 more in his first term, and once it comes time to open the government, he's going to sign a 4th one in this term. We're not going to get a balanced budget out of this, I can tell you that. And he should have been using the bully pulpit from the first day that he walked into office. Because it was there. The opportunity was there, and we all knew already at the beginning what was going to happen when we got down to the end of this. Senate Republicans were going to lose their spine, and they were going to try to continue funding the government under the guidelines that the Biden admin set out. And Democrats were going to throw a big demand in at the very, very last minute. We knew this was happening. We did not need to wait until September to come back and address this. Now, the full blame as to where the shutdown came from itself, specifically, and right on the target, is going to be on the Senate Democrats who, just like I said, we knew they were going to do this, but who came in at the very last second and dropped in a poison pill and said they were going to filibuster the bill unless something happened, unless they got what they wanted. This is the Democrats' shutdown, and a couple of the Democrats in the Senate already know that. Now, let's be realistic, they're going to get primaried out if they go back and do anything in support of Senate Republicans, but many of them are going to have their jobs to lose. So we have that. They're even trying to keep with us here. The White House. Democrats shut down from the White House with someone say, bro, with a 53-seat majority over in the Senate. But again, the regardless part of this is the fact that you can have your 53-seat majority in the Senate. And none of that changes the fact that we have the 53-seat Senate, but it requires 60 votes to pass. So yes, Senate Democrats can sit back and hold all of this hostage. And it's not hard for them to do. We're going on 2 hours already, aren't we? No wonder I have to pee so much. I want to talk a bit about some of the previous ones here, and again, why this continues to get blamed on Senate Democrats. But let's listen to Scott Bessent here for a second here.
We're in day 2 of the government shutdown. Join us now with where the administration stands on the latest. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Scott, it helps to, Mr. Secretary, it helps to have seen the moon landing, doesn't it? I mean, isn't there something beneficial about having some experience in life, or is it me?
Joe, I find good to be with you and Becky. I find wisdom's good. I remember when my dad got me up early in the morning to watch the moon landing. So I think I was 7 years old.
I know. Then we, unlike some other people, we know it actually happened and that the flag wasn't waving.
I wasn't there. I didn't see it, but I believe it.
Okay. This Secretary, day 2. I guess I'll start with what we're hearing from OMB or at least rumors of possible real action taken to do some things permanently during this shutdown within the next 48 hours or so. Can you shed any light on whether that's really going to happen, or was it a bargaining chip for Republicans to get Democrats to agree to keep the government open?
Well, Joe, let's just step back for a minute and look how we got here. Chuck Schumer did the right thing in the spring and led the Senate to a clean CR. What we've got here is the House they have passed a clean CR. The Republicans have the votes in the Senate, and he will not allow his members to come across. And what's changed since then is it's his poll numbers. So the president, Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson, Leader Thune, they're not negotiating with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. They're negotiating with Representative Ocasio-Cortez because she's nipping at his heels. And, so the American people are being held hostage by Chuck Schumer's poll numbers. And, we're starting to see some of the very few moderate members left in the Democratic Party in the Senate drift toward wanting a solution. Chuck Schumer's blocking it. When I look at Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, straight out of Brooklyn, makes me glad that I left New York in 2020. And your question about the shutdown, this is a choice that Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have made. And if they want to shut the government down, then there are ramifications.
I'm just wondering, do you think that there is it more than just bargaining then? Would the president, would Russ Vought, would they like to do some, they've already pulled back on some, on some funding in some blue states for, climate initiatives. So they're going ahead with some of these things. Do you think they'd like to finally shrink the size of the federal government and use this as the opportunity, or are they hoping that we get things settled within the next couple of days, then that they don't have to do that?
Well, what
I can answer that for you too as well. Even with the strain against the media and what we are seeing now with some of the blame actually going towards Democrats to the point that some of them are jumping ship off the Democratic side. and wanting to join in the continuing resolution to try to keep themselves out of the spotlight. No, neither political party wants to shrink the size and scope of the federal government. Trump says he does, but even there I do think that there's a possibility that he wants to swap at least some of those people out for some of his own people as well. So, and I'm not 100% opposed to myself. I think that possibly it's a good thing here and there to go back and shrink some of this back down and replace some of these people out. I think realistically a bureaucracy shouldn't be beholden to a leadership that it hates, and yes, your own people should be in. But I want to talk just a bit about some of the previous ones that we have here. Now, this has been going on since 1980. But we really first started hearing about it in 2013 under Barack Obama. While they did have almost a month shutdown under Bill Clinton. That I didn't know about. Possibly because they didn't really go back and do anything about it. And I don't know if they even publicized it. This was 95, 96. I was pretty young at that point. I was 12. And I was taking American Civics, but I was just getting into it. But the big one the majority of us remember for the first time is 2013, the ACA funding. Again, the number one that I would say we could probably place the blame squarely on Obama for, because he himself said he wasn't going to sign anything coming from the Republican legislature unless it had the funding for the ACA. And he did have, I believe, a Democratic majority to come back out and filibuster that as well. And I want to scroll down to some of these. 1980, yeah. Carter shut it down for a day. Was that Bush 1 or Reagan? 81, that would have been Reagan. Had it down for a day. Reagan had it down in 84 for about 4 hours. In 86 for about 4 hours. W had it for 3 days. Bill had it for 3 or 5, and then 21. Barack had 16. That's the one that we all know about. And then Trump had 3, and then the world record of 35, and now we're at 2 ongoing. I could honestly see this one going for 60 days too. There's definitely going to be some fatigue if we get that long, I can say that. Oh, I hear Ed Jr. again. She's not happy. Ed Jr. not happy right now. Arvold says, I stopped to eat lunch. Can you back up about 20 minutes? Possibly. What'd you have, by the way? You live down there in that Mississippi. There's probably something really good to eat there. Oh, I hear Ed Jr. She's not happy. I don't know where this song comes from, by the way. I had it on our way from Ripty Beats, but I like it a lot. I want to know which Final Fantasy game it came from. Anyway, let's get down to the Obama one, the one that we all know about. So, the shutdown of 2013 occurred during the second Obama term, focusing on a disagreement between the Republican-led House and the Democrat-led Senate towards the contents of the 2014 Continuing Appropriations Resolution Bill, because of course, and again, we don't have a budget. Thanks, Bush. Bush 2. Alongside other political issues, congressional Republicans, encouraged by conservative senators such as Ted Cruz, and conservative groups such as the Heritage Action sought to include several measures to the bill in late 2013 that could delay funding for the Affordable Care Act and thus allow time for changes to be made to the act. Both Obama and Democratic senators refused to agree to these measures, seeking instead for the bill to maintain government funding at then current sequestration levels with no additional conditions. The shutdown took place on October 1st as a result of an impasse over the contents of the bill, with the House unable to approve any CRs before this date. Democrats opposed further efforts by congressional Republicans, led by then Speaker Boehner, to delay funding of the ACA and rejected piecemeal resolution bills proposed by them to resolve the shutdown. As Congress was at an impasse amidst rising concerns the U.S. would default on public debt, U.S. Senators, particularly then Senate Minority Leader the Turtle Man Mitch McConnell and then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, the filibuster killer, negotiated a deal to end the deadlock. Their proposal, which won a Senate vote, approved an amended resolution that would keep funding at sequestration levels, temporarily suspended the debt limit until February 7th, 2014, and included a concession to congressional Republicans on the ACA by applying stricter income verification rules. In regards to health insurance, Boehner eventually withdrew further objections and delaying attempts against the ACA upon the country being within hours of breaking its debt limit on October 16th, 2013. And yes, that's the other thing that they use for a leverage point is, oh, well, we might default on our debts, so we might all die because of that. It might be over. A new restaurant near me, Nashville Hot Chicken, and they were serious about the hot. Dude, that's hot. All right? But very clearly, Senate Democrats and Obama were behind the 2013 shutdown, but still, the mainstream media, the apparatus of the Democratic Party, was able to come back and spin the story and place the blame directly on Republicans. It's something I warned about with this upcoming shutdown as well, that the blame could very easily be turned around and placed on Republicans, but it's getting harder and harder to do that, I've noticed. It's getting much, much harder to do that, given the fact, especially when it's only a handful of Democrats who won't come back and negotiate for keeping things going for 7 weeks while they go back and figure everything out. If Senate Republicans were trying to come back out and say, okay, give us a year of funding, and you are shut out of negotiations until then, I would say a lot of the people in the media have a point. But the proposal from Republicans was, hey, give us 7 weeks to come back out and figure this out. So let's keep going business as usual for 7 weeks and figure this out. And then after that, then we can go back and have this fight again. Now, the mainstream media is going to continue to try to tell us this is all Republicans' fault, but it doesn't seem to be working that way right now. Stocks closed higher on the first day. We talked about that earlier. We're going to skip that one. California, using an official, by the way, California website, which I don't know if this violates the Hatch Act or not, but they're using this specifically for political leverage. Gavin Newsom says, Trump to Americans, go fuck yourself, shuts down the Republican-controlled government, increasing monthly healthcare costs by hundreds of dollars. And because they have a gov.ca.gov domain, I do think that this is a violation of the Hatch Act. Not that anything's going to happen about that, but as Trump and his Republican enablers in Congress, who hold the majority, prepare to shut down the federal government, impacting nearly 40 million Californians' daily lives. Gavin Newsom highlighted how severe and damaging this extreme, selfish, and politically motivated shutdown is for Americans. By the way, again, I hold to my assertion that Newsom is not the nominee. But right now he's acting like the nominee to distract the real nominee from being put in the spotlight, so they can carefully control what the public sees about the actual nominee. But yes, he is trying to use this to make this into a a Republican thing. And it's not. As we mentioned earlier, over 100,000 federal employees are preparing to hand in their formal resignations tomorrow from Raw's Alerts, with the community note for the win. The 100,000 resignations are part of Trump's deferred resignation program. This is not mentioned in the original post. So yes, they are resigning, but they're resigning because they already planned to do so. So there we have it. The government is shutting down. Well, it's shut down currently, partially. Go in the Discord or go on my X, at JEdgar102 for the X, Discord link in the description. Tell me how the government shutdown is affecting you. If it's affecting you. And what you think about what's going on here. Neutral sentiment is driving the U.S. market right now. That's funny, because I'm pretty sure it's fear. All right. From CNN, YouTube to pay $24.5 million to settle Trump lawsuit. YouTube agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit filed by President Trump after he was suspended by social media platforms following the January 6, 2021 Selfie Fest. This makes Alphabet-owned YouTube, which is Google-owned, for those of you not in the technological loop, the last of the three big tech social media companies sued by Trump, which included Meta and then Twitter, now called X, to settle over his removal from their platforms. YouTube will pay $22 million to settle the claims made by Trump during the nonprofit Trust for the National Mall, which is dedicated to restoring, preserving, and elevating the National Mall to support the construction of the White House State Ballroom, according to a court document. Which, by the way, there's already threats to go back and tear that right to the ground, leave no stone left unturned. This is getting very, very, very reflective of early Jewish stories about the temple, the money changers, and the book of Revelation. The social media company will also pay $2.5 million to settle with the other plaintiffs, such as the nonprofit American Conservative Union. YouTube directed CNN to the court document when asked for comment. So that's a part of the problem, especially when it comes to the ability to reach out to the American people. And I can also say with full certainty, remember a couple years ago when I went to the Trump rally? I went with Vong, actually. We went over to the Trump rally and watched the speech, and I live streamed most of the speech, even though my phone was pretty well dead by the time that we got out to the speech part. And I got my stream taken down, and I got a hard strike from YouTube over the fact that there was election disinformation from Trump's speech. Evil election disinformation, even though you could go on the Fox 6 website and watch the exact same speech, not being struck from YouTube. The exact same speech that I live streamed. I got suspended for a week, and Fox 6 was going strong. But we come into, especially given the fact that it's supposedly against the law for politicians, political figures, to go back and block people from their congressional, especially, but I believe even their personal accounts. So having YouTube come in and forcing you to not be able to use their platform to reach out to the users of this country, some of whom might not have Meta or X. The level of people who don't have a meta platform of some sort or the other, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or Threads. I have all three, but I only use one. But the level of people in this country who have none of the three is nigh on nil at this point. And a lot of these people use Google, Android especially. So yes, I can see how restricting the access to Trump across these platforms that he can use to reach out to the American people and talk to them directly, yes, will run afoul to a bunch of things, and I'm sure that the judge in the case cited a lot of that case law as well. Or either that or the Trump admin went judge shopping to find somebody who'd be sympathetic to their cause. And YouTube decided not to go back out and fight it because, well, then they might be found wrong. And I do also find some heart in the fact that we're not, like, it's not going to Trump's pocket as a settlement of this type usually would. He's actually having YouTube direct that specifically to the grand ballroom he's trying to build, where we're hearing a lot of people coming back trying to tell us that, oh, well, it's the American taxpayers who are gonna do this. It's only the American taxpayers who are going to pay for this. And realistically, no, it's Alphabet Incorporated. Same thing with the LA Times. YouTube, Disney, and Meta have all settled inside Trump's $90 million payday, which again, he's not going to come back and use for himself. A rundown of the payouts. After the January 6th selfie fest in the U.S. Capitol, YouTube suspended the president's account on the platform because of Trump's alleged role in the insurrection, which has never been proven. At the time, the company cited concerns about the ongoing potential for violence and violation of its policies for inciting violence, none of which happened. Trump's lawsuit, filed in 2021 at the U.S. District Court of Northern California, argued the account suspension was censorship. Before the case was settled, YouTube had already lifted its suspension of Trump in March of 23 in light of the then upcoming presidential race, because you wouldn't want them to be accused of having their fingers on the scale. Of course. Of the $24.5 million, $22 million is going to Trump, who will contribute the money to the Trust for the National Mall, which is dedicated to restoring, preserving, and elevating the National Mall, as well as supporting the construction of the White House State Ballroom, per the filing. Northern California, also known as the California Republic. That would be the new California Republic, by the way. Most of my audience will get that joke. Palm does not, but if we ever get some time for ourselves to maybe do some streaming together, she will know what that means. Big idea in the works. Mostly working on trying to get it timed out, because we do have an infant in the house. Palm plays Fallout New Vegas. Blind. I have gone to great lengths to make sure that there are no spoilers in this house, because I spoiled Fallout New Vegas for myself. I looked way ahead and I watched ending videos of that before I played it. I spoiled New Vegas for myself, and I'm kind of sad about the fact that I did. Because I would have much rather seen that blind and experienced it for the first time. I'm not going to deny my loving girlfriend that experience. When we play and stream Fallout New Vegas together, she's going in completely blind to what the story is, to what it is she's supposed to do, and the decisions she's, quote, supposed to make. I'll help along with a little bit of questions, and I get to sit back for commentary, and maybe some of the game mechanics, like, the crafting and everything else like that. But as far as letting the story progress, nope, we're going into this one completely blind. She gets to have the New Vegas experience that I did not have. Aren't you lucky? Meta and Twitter, 35 million. Social media platforms Facebook and Twitter had suspended Trump's accounts over the Selfie Fest. In July of that year, Trump sued the companies for censorship. In January 23, Meta had reinstated Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts, as had X in 22. That was when Elon took over. Paramount, $16 million. Paramount agreed to pay $16 million to resolve Trump's legal salvo against the 60 Minutes scandal. We're editing the interview of Vice President Harris and putting their finger on the scale. Last May, CBS offered $16 million to settle the civil suit filed in Texas. The lump sum included the president's legal fees and an agreement that 60 Minutes will release transcripts of interviews with future presidential candidates. So they can't selectively edit. That's from Stardew. I've never played to the end of the quote end of Stardew. I get to spring of year 1 or year 2 rather, and then just life suddenly gets in the way. I don't know how it continues to get in the way. I play Stardew on here. My mouse dead? No, it's not. It's going. And Disney, since Palm asked about it. Otherwise, I actually probably would have cut this article already. Early last year, ABC News anchor George Snuffleupagus asserted on the network's This Week, the news program, that Trump was found liable for raping Elizabeth Jean Carroll. In May of 23, a jury in New York declined to find Trump liable for rape, but did find him liable for sexual abuse of Carroll. So that was the Disney one. Because ABC is owned by Disney, of course. Trump responded to the on-air comments with a defamation lawsuit filed in federal court in Florida. The lawsuit was settled by ABC, owned by Disney, last December. Disney agreed to pay $15 million towards Trump's presidential library and $1 million of Trump's legal fees. Yeah, they're trying very, very hard to make sure that there is not a Trump presidential library. So that's your lawsuit day. The Atlantic, because the Atlantic has to be the Atlantic. YouTube bends the knee. Welcome to the era of big tech capitulation. Translation: they're not censoring the people that we want them to censor, which means they must be evil. We must sound the drums of war. From Charlie Warzel. If you measure only in dollars and not in dignity, YouTube got a pretty good deal. This week, the platform paid $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit brought by Trump after the company suspended his channel 6 days after the Selfie Fest. At the time, YouTube said it was concerned about the ongoing potential for violence. In terms of the settlement, we'll direct $22 million to the Trust for the National Mall, a nonprofit group that's raising money to finance an addition to the White House. Most creators are lucky if they get a gold plaque from YouTube. Trump's getting a new ballroom. I will probably never get a new plaque or a gold plaque because... and we can't even read this one because it's behind the paywall. They want you to pay, and people will pay, to see them say, "Evil Trump man bad." But it's just funny to me that not censoring the people that the Atlantic wants censored is bending the knee. Alright, what do we have left? What time is it? It's 1:17. Most people I talk to or listen to politically, which are getting fewer and fewer by the day, by the way, because I'm getting so bored of it. They're so deep in one camp or the other. And I'm against all camps. But most people have refused to talk about this entirely. Well, I want to talk just briefly about it. A man who attacked Michigan church became unhinged when talking about Mormon faith. So there was a major series of shootings this past week, just as I predicted there would be, because, well, when the evil Republican comes into the executive branch, that means that we have to try to push gun control as fast as we can. I believe we're doing that on Saturday. I gotta text my coworker to make sure that he's watching the shop on Saturday. But apparently he became unhinged when talking about the Mormon faith. From Ed White. The man who shot up a Michigan church and set fire that killed 4 people was a former U.S. Marine who expressed animosity about the Mormon faith to a city council candidate knocking on doors just days before the attack. Ed Jr. wants to sleep a lot today, despite sleeping well last night. She did not want to sleep while I was putting the notes together for today's show, by the way. She had no desire to sleep then. Thomas Sanford, who was known as Jake, drove a pickup with a deer skull and antlers strapped at the front and 2 large American flags flapping in the wind in the bed, according to friends and social media posts. Sanford smashed the truck into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints chapel in Grand Blanc Township. He was killed by police who rushed to the scene Sunday, 60 miles northwest of Detroit. The building was destroyed. Chris Johns, a council candidate in Burton, said he met Sanford while introducing himself to voters last week. He told MLive.com that Sanford was pleasant but became unhinged when he suddenly began talking about the Mormon Church, as it is widely known. It's not known what ties, if any, Sanford had to the church, but John said Sanford indicated that some members wanted to get rid of his tattoos. He also talked about sealing the Mormon temple ceremony of joining a man, a woman, and their children together for eternity. So, what's been big about this, of course, and just briefly on this one, I don't want to go too deep into this, because, again, a lot of this is just ploy in the media. These shootings and everything happen all the time. They do. None of this is a new thing. But what I want to put on the front burner and bring up to this is, yes, while these happen all the time, a big part of the problem that goes with that is they get publicized. Either when it's something that can get people fighting, like the same allegation I made about the George Floyd riots, and what happened to George Floyd and Jacob Blake when they were ambiguous at best. And they got people disagreeing. Whereas the killing of Patrick Loyola, point blank, after he was immobilized with a 9mm straight into his lungs, looked like it was going to cause BLM riots, but it fizzled out because it got no national media coverage because, well, most everybody was going to look at that and say that the cop was at fault. No. Joseph Smith said that Mormons are the most Christian of all Christians. He wouldn't lie to us, would he? But this was so quick to try to be ascribed to a political motive. And apparently this guy had a MAGA shirt on. So, and I believe he was taken alive so he can come back and get questioned. The guy had apparently married a Mormon chick years back, and then she divorced him about 10 years later. And again, that's really not where I'm going with any of this. What I want to talk about is a lot of these things are going to become politicized, especially if there's any tangential relation to Trump at all. Now, we can sit here and discuss what happened in Utah all that we want. Or the Thomas Crooks things. Neither one of those people I believe to be Trump supporters, but that was the first thing that came out about them. But any shooting at all, anywhere, that has any tangential inclusion with somebody who once wore the MAGA hat is going to be front page, front and center news. And that's a part of the reason I think a lot of the big name commentators didn't want to talk about this, because it doesn't appear that the shooting had any political motivation, and yet reckless mainstream media wants to attribute a political motivation to this one. Michigan church shooter's romance history emerges as suspect's father apologizes to victim's family. Yeah, that's probably a big part of it as well. Just like Vong said. Now, in Michigan, there's a nursing strike going on trying to appeal for higher wages, but it does look like these striking nurses left the picket line to go help the victims of the Michigan church shooting and fire, so I am kind of happy to go back and see that as well. No, Joseph Smith said in his writings that nobody can be more Christian than Joseph Smith. That he actually got it right, even more than Muhammad did. Alright, I want to grab one from The Guardian just on the other stuff here to basically, it's going to be a good brush over of everything else that is getting ignored this week. 9 people dead and scores injured over a weekend of mass U.S. shootings. Sunday's mass murder at a Mormon church in Grand Blanc, which left 4 dead and 8 wounded, was just one of 6 mass shootings that erupted across the U.S. over a weekend of gun horror. Let's see. The weekend's carnage began in the early hours of Saturday morning when multiple shots were fired in separate incidences. In Alexandria, Louisiana, and in Raleigh, North Carolina, at least 4 people were injured on Highway 71, south in Alexandria. About the same time, 4 a.m. local time, 4 people were shot and injured at Millbrook Road in Raleigh. 3 of the hurt individuals were found at the scene of the gunfire, and a 4th presented later at the hospital. Saturday's 3rd shooting broke out at a bar about 9:30 p.m. when a gunman armed with a semi-automatic short-barreled rifle opened fire from a boat at a waterfront bar in Southport, North Carolina. The shooting left 3 people dead and 8 injured. Local reporters said the target had been the American Fish Company. So, again, no real political motivation, but they're going to try to associate it with. The suspect fled by boat, was arrested by the Coast Guard, and has been charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and other felonies. Then, just before midnight on a Saturday, a 34-year-old gunman opened fire at a Kickapoo Lucky Eagle Casino along the border with Mexico and Texas. The gambling spot was packed at the time, with customers at a raffle event. 1 person was pronounced dead at the casino, and a 2nd died on the way to the hospital. One of those killed was a retired Customs and Border Protection officer, the mayor of Eagle Pass said on social media. And that appears to be all of them. So, a lot of political motivation trying to be put where political motivation wasn't. Because, well, they just want to complain about the guns. Alright. Let's talk a bit about the Comey stuff. So James Comey got indicted for lying to Congress this past week. And already everything is going to be a mess on this one. This is actually another one of those where I'm going to suck it up and listen to old Benny Boy on this because, well, it's legal in nature. And as much as I can't stand Benny Boy, he is one of the leading experts on the legal system, being a Harvard-educated lawyer himself. DOJ gave Trump's hand-picked U.S. attorney little support to indict Comey. She did it anyway, from Evan Perez and Kristen Holmes. So it almost looks like the Trump admin wasn't necessarily pushing for this one. Lindsay Halligan, President Trump's hand-picked U.S. attorney in one of the country's most important federal prosecutor shops, was effectively set up to fail last Thursday, sources said, when in her first ever presentation before a grand jury, she convinced the panel to indict former FBI Director James Comey on 2 of 3 counts. The DOJ and the seasoned lawyers of the Eastern District of Virginia U.S. Attorney's Office, known for its aggressive government leak and national security prosecutions, had collectively turned their nose up at the case, with many believing the evidence wasn't strong enough to support criminal charges. DOJ headquarters declined to provide lawyers to assist Halligan, and FBI agents and lawyers working to prepare her were denied their request for a paralegal professional to assist in the presentation, according to 2 people familiar with the matter. Lindsay was set up to fail. One of the sources familiar with the discussion said she was the lamb sent to slaughter. But Halligan, a former private lawyer for Trump who arrived earlier in the week to take the helm in the Alexandria-based district after the president fired his previous nominee, defied the odds. If the effort had failed, it could have struck a major blow to Trump in his ongoing efforts to seek prosecution of his political enemies over his objections of career prosecutors and even some political appointees. Trump stands by AG Bondi, Deputy AG Blanche, and U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, the White House spokeswoman, bubble-headed bleach blonde, said to CNN in a statement, "The president appreciates everyone's efforts to restore accountability to our justice system." I am not a fan of this, by the way. And I've been very, very open about the idea that I do want to see accountability to a lot of the people who have been using the executive branch especially, but various levers of government for criminal or self-enrichment purposes. And Comey is one of these people. The problem is, when you do something like this and the opposition party has a captive media already, you sit in a situation where now this looks like politically motivated charges, whereas the same media was saying, nope, Trump just broke the law. There's nothing politically motivated here. Shouldn't have broken the law. Shouldn't have done this. Shouldn't have done that, etc., etc., etc. But because you have a captive media, then you come out and you get these stories like, oh, well, he's just going after his political enemies because he hates freedom and democracy and he's a fascist. I would rather a court come out to James Comey, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Liz Cheney for that matter, and all these other people who I do honestly believe acted criminally in all of this, say, okay, here's the deal. You can have immunity forever. You will never go to prison, which most of them aren't going to anyway. You will never see the inside of a jail cell. You'll never see a trial. You'll never see anything else. You just have to be 100% open and public about what happened with everything. Tell the American people the truth and let them decide. No prison for you whatsoever. And they wouldn't even take that deal, because it's about power for them. And if the American people find out about all the stuff that they did, then they won't get voted for anymore. But I can tell you right off the bat that stripping the ability of people like the Clintons, of the Comeys, of the Bidens, the Obamas, to be elected, to be able to have influence over the American people, is a fate worse than prison for them. If they go to prison, they can sit and write a book and become a martyr and say, I was unlawfully and illegally targeted by my political opponent. And now you have to rise up and take back the country from this fascist political opponent. Whereas dooming these people to a life of obscurity will hurt them much, much, much more deeply than any prison cell ever will. I don't like the fact that they're doing this because I think it's going to backfire on them spectacularly. I do. We're not going to do the Israeli thing. Basically, the Navy intercepted a group of what's labeled as humanitarian boats, but is basically a political stunt from the UN to try to get Greta Thunberg into Hamas and get photo opportunities of her handing supplies to Gazan citizens for propagandistic purposes. Everybody is insanely stupid in this particular situation. The Israelis are stupid, the UN is stupid, the Gazans are stupid, and the people that are throwing their support around any of these groups are being insanely stupid about all of this. Pete Hegseth. Axios is saying embrace MAGA military or quit, but realistically, Pete Hegseth is putting the standards back to the military to try to pull some of the heftier members of our U.S. Navy and the Chair Force as well to get back to fighting fit. Now we're skipping that one. I just wanted to talk about that one briefly. There was a major immigration raid in Chicago. I know absolutely nothing about it. I put it on the stack hoping that I wouldn't spend 3 hours talking about the government shutdown. Here we are. And Portland is going into a major war zone as well. This one I'm probably going to hold on to and maybe talk about next week. EA is being bought by Saudi Arabia. That we'll talk about next week, I think. Elon Musk was named in the Epstein files. Release the files, nobody can care. And there's some foreign policy going from Ukraine and the Middle East as well. That's what we're going to skip today. Hopefully bring some of it back tomorrow. But with that, especially since my stomach is grumbling here, we'll throw up things I like, things I hate, and the rules of acquisition, and we head out of here for the day. So, where were we last week? We're gonna do 3 of them today because they're all exactly the same. Well, they're all kind of in the same point. The 112th, 113th, and 122nd rule of acquisition. One is from the reference book, and 2 of them are from the DS9 episode Playing God. Just grab a brief synopsis of that one, because I don't know which one that one is right offhand. Oh, that was the one where the proto-universe started growing inside of DS9. And Quark had a business deal going on off the back end of it. So, 112th rule of acquisition. And the 122nd, never sleep with the boss's sister. Both coming from the same episode because, well, you should probably know what's happening with that. And when somebody has the power to retaliate against you, they're probably going to use it, especially in something like that. But then we take that one further and point out the 113th rule of acquisition, always have sex with the boss. I'm going to come back out and say, and I've never read the rules of acquisition reference book off of that, but yeah, don't do that either. That's a bad idea. I mean, hell, with the hell that I went through the one time I was really, really smart when I was 18 years old and decided I wanted to date one of my coworkers. And how bad that backfired on me. I think all of the rest of us know what happens when we continue to go down this other road here, so yeah. Never have sex with the boss's sister, and amended to the 113th rule of acquisition, never have sex with the boss either. So next week we go on to the 117th rule of acquisition. But let's do a bunch of things that I hate and a couple things that I like. Alright, thing that I hate number 1 because, well, you had to know it was coming when they decided to go put this smart stuff in. And, you know, I've thought about doing smart home stuff. I have. I've even asked my friend Seawall for some help in maybe getting some of the stuff set up to do so with a Raspberry Pi in an air-gapped closed system. Something that we can only access from inside of the house or just shortly outside of the house. But to set up a sort of a mild smart home where we can turn the lights on and off from our phones and turn the TVs on and off from our phones and maybe check some cameras from our phones, just stuff like that. But as long as we're on the property, or at least inside the house, make it Bluetooth or something. Instead of having it touch the internet where anybody else can come in and get at the stuff as well. But regardless, other people love their smart devices. They want to look at the fridge panel and see what's in the fridge. Well, here's the thing. That stuff costs money to use, and yes, I believe you have a subscription fee to use the smart features on the Samsung fridge, but they still have to get their money somehow, and yeah, now we're putting ads onto these. Just briefly on this one, days after someone revealed the news on social media, Samsung confirmed today that it's showing advertisements on some U.S. customers' smart fridges. Samsung said the ads showing on some Family Hub series fridges are part of a pilot program, but we suspect that they may become more permanent additions to Samsung fridges and other types of screen-equipped smart home appliances. Dude, we all saw that coming. I have no desire to have a smart fridge for that reason. Because I don't need to see a commercial from Monster Jam. Because it's sitting here listening to me when I go back to figure out what kind of milk and such that I have on the fridge. No thank you. I mean, I'll get the old Frigidaire before I go back and subject myself to this. Samsung currently lists 9 Family Hub refrigerators in the US, which have MSRPs ranging from $1,800 to $3,500. Family Hub fridges have 21.5 or 32-inch screens, which until now users have had autonomy over for displaying helpful or fun things like photos and video, memos, weather, timers, and a web browser. Some of these abilities require a Wi-Fi connection or a Samsung account. Well, good luck, folks. I guess Samsung's bills had to get paid somehow. Let's see, other things that I hate. Oh, Trump. Oh, Trump. Pfizer to lower some drug prices at White House builds Trump RX website. Yes, you're reading that correctly. The Trump administration, who has railed against socialism and the radical left agenda, wants to implement government price controls and socialism. And buying your drugs directly through the government. As much as I hate this, and I do, I openly hate this, I kind of want to see this. Because I want to see how this is going to be twisted into Trump bad. Into Orange Man bad, Trump Man bad. And it's evil. It's actually evil and fascistic to buy your medicine from the government. Call me crazy, call me guilty. I want to watch it. Pfizer agreed to offer significantly discounted prices. And again, price controls. This is the same thing as Mamdani saying government-run grocery store for some prescription drugs for all American consumers. Is committed to offer prescription medications to Medicaid at lower prices. Trump announced Tuesday the president said the drugs will be available for purchase online on a website operated by the federal government, which the White House has said will be called Trump RX. Aside from the obvious self-aggrandizing, this is what your campaign has spent the last decade railing against. Yeah, this is actually a thing, folks. Other things that I hate, including allowing government intrusion into your home. Although, Ohio is saying it's the power companies and the government's never going to use this here. Proposed Ohio bill will let power companies adjust thermostats in homes and small businesses to try to avoid peaks. Now, I am 100% okay if you want to give your information to the power company and say, do your thing. Because I believe in the environment and I wear the NPR sweater and drink coffee from the NPR mug. So if you think that I need to sit in an 85-degree house to save on peak energy, here's my information. Adjust my thermostat at will, power company. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is the government coming back and saying you have to do this because we said so. I'm surprisingly okay with government intrusion and involvement as long as it's voluntary. But once they come back and start telling you that no, you must do this, then yes, that's where I start to have problems with this. And Ohio lawmakers introduced a bill that will allow utility companies to automatically adjust your thermostat in your house. HB 427 would create a voluntary demand response program. If it's coming from the government, it's not a voluntary response program. You will be enrolled in it. Customers would be allowed to sign up and let their utility company temporarily adjust energy use, including raising thermostat settings or cycling water heaters during periods of high demand. The bill's sponsor, Roy Klopfenstein, a Republican, said it's meant to help some homeowners and small businesses save money while reducing the load on the power grid. You wait until Ohio flips Democrat again while you have something like this in place and tell me it stays voluntary. Because I'm going to tell you right off the bat, it won't. I've seen the government do this too many times. And again, if the power company came in and offered you the ability to do so, and you took it on your own without the government involvement, that's fine. In an incoming lawsuit, tech industry, Robinhood, saying, I rejected 5 MAGA folks, even though they did well in the interviews. The fact that you did good in the interviews tells me that you shouldn't be interviewing people to begin with. And this might even be a troll statement at this point. You claim we hire only H-1B, pay them less. You don't get opportunities just because you're MAGA. I'll make that true. Even if I get a sniff that you're MAGA or Trump supporter, you're done. You're not working in Robinhood, at least in my team. Now, you do have the ability to freely associate and hire who it is that you want. But now to come back out and openly admit that you're doing so en masse based on political affiliation, that probably runs afoul of a few different equal opportunity employment laws. Now, if you came back out and said, oh, oops, I lost their resume, it's this, that, the next thing, that'd be one thing. And you could probably get away with it and do it. And I'm sure that people do it here every day. In fact, I know people do it every day. Refuse to hire for one political party or the other just based on the fact of you think that having that person from that political party being on your staff would be a nightmare. You can put anything down on the paper that you want. But again, to come back out and openly admit to it probably opens up at least to a lawsuit. If not criminal charges. What a rude interruption. Did you get a commercial? Was it a bad one? I'm going to skip that one. I don't know enough about that one. The whole not a leftist thing continuing to go on. Family says Dallas ice shooter was not a radical leftist. Press X it out, please. Power randomly went out. I put this one on because I found it a little bit funny. Hillary Clinton. If I'd only known, I could call up the FCC chair and say, take this person off the air, get that person out of my sight, off with his head. Says the lady who picks up the phone and makes people disappear. Let's listen to Hillary Clinton.
I mean, good Lord, the things that have been said about me, the lies that have been propagated. If I had only known, I could call up the FCC chair and say, take this person off the air. get that person out of my sight, off with his head. Yeah. I'm just looking at Joe.
What?
Yeah,
I've done nothing but be kind to you.
Well, once you saw the light, I mean, what sort of... I mean, good Lord, the things that have been said about me, the lies that have been propagated, if I had...
I mean, I'd rather have be taken off the air than, have the Clintons on my backside. And even with me saying this, I also fully come out and state that I do not have any thoughts of self-harm. I am perfectly happy and not depressed, and would never even consider doing anything to harm myself. All right. One more on things that I hate. The Trump admin to provide Ukraine with intelligence, potentially long-range missiles to hit targets deep inside Russia. Hey, you remember that forever war that we were told that we were never going to get into again under the Trump admin? Yeah, guess what? You got lied to. And soon enough, it'll be our troops on the ground, our boots on the ground, and everything else. So, good luck with that. All right, let's do a couple things that I like. And then we shall be done. Goats and Scarf says, oh my god, you're right. Went downstairs, there was a cute Fed surrounded by candles and rose petals. BRB getting roomed. So if you haven't done the Trolley crossover, Mountain Dew and Trolley have a collaboration going on. I don't like Trolleys, so I've not tried the gummies because I don't like really sour candy. I got my fill of that in the 90s when Atomic Warheads came out. But go try the Mountain Dew if you can find it. It's really good. Mountain Dew has been hitting it out of the park this summer, and I wish they'd have kept some of the stuff permanent, because yeah, it's pretty well amazing. So go ahead and give that a try if you have a chance, if you see it around the store. It's a little bit sweet, kind of orangey. I only get the zero one. I've tried the full sugar one, but I've only found it in one place. So I don't know of a lot of places that have it, but yeah, it's really good. Couple other things that I like. Skipping that one too. One of the things that I like, and I saw this happening just before we left, or just before we started talking about the government shutdown, Eric Erickson says, by the way, I think one of the things Democrats missed about Project 2025 is that it started as a massive database of MAGA resumes. When the federal jobs are reopened, the right already has a database of qualified applicants who share the right's worldview. Eric Erickson reporting, here's the trap Democrats are walking into with a shutdown. Office of Management and Budget can reduce discretionary agencies and force, instead of layoffs, they can fire and reduce the workforce. Now, I do hope, and again, this is campaign promise, lost and kept. But on the side of this, the campaign promise lost is the fact that if they actually eliminate these government jobs, this is eliminated government waste. But if they go back and install loyalists, well, realistically, you should have people who support you in a lot of these roles. You should be able to come back out and clear out the loyalists to the previous administration and then go back and put your own people back in. That is a thing that you should be doing. I'm sorry to come back out and say it like this, but that is what we have for that. Now, with all of that being said, we were sold the promise again that we were getting reduced federal workforce. So instead of coming back and putting loyalists back in these places. No, we should be getting a reduced workforce. And that's why this is kind of in the middle for me. And the last thing that I like is kind of a got 'em moment. In Des Moines, the superintendent of schools, by coming out and being public and holding a public office, got picked up and put back on the deportation order after flaunting it back. And this guy was on deportation order from the Biden administration, by the way. Let's read briefly from this one. On Tuesday, hundreds of students walked out of middle and high schools across the city to protest ICE detention of Ian Andre Roberts, the now former superintendent of Iowa's largest school district. In the afternoon, several dozen students gathered at the state capitol calling for Roberts' release from the Sioux City jail, where he's being held, and holding signs reading "Radical Empathy," a tagline he frequently used. "I don't think anyone really cares about the fact that he's illegal," said Gabrielle Doyle-Scarr, who helped organize the protest. "We're just sad about the fact he's an extremely nice man who supported us heavily and really strongly is now taken away from us." During rush hour that night, roughly 20 people displayed a banner from a bridge over the interstate that cuts across the center of the city, reading "Free Dr. Roberts," as dozens of cars and large trucks honked in support as they passed underneath. Now, my big point of contention on this, of course, is he got his deportation orders under under Biden rather, in the early part of the Biden admin. So if you've got the orders and you have a sympathetic Democratic president, why wouldn't you work on getting everything in order so you don't have to go back and get deported? You've been giving a literal second chance, instead of course, thumbing your nose at everybody and going, no, and saying, "Come get me. We're going to go back and start a revolution in this country." Alright. I gotta get out of here, guys. It's been fun. It's been great. I gotta pee again because I've drank half of this plus 2 cans of soda, a half can of Yoo-Hoo, and a large can of Celsius. So I've got a lot going on in my bladder, and I think Pom is actually going to need help getting some of the crap out of her car because we cleaned out my pickup. Because I was hoping that I was going to be done with this before she had to go back and leave. So let's get this all figured out here. And let's get the outro music and go. Yeah, it still blows my mind. That guy had plenty of opportunity, every opportunity to get his paperwork in order. And he didn't. And he found out. Anyway, thanks so much everybody who came by and hung out in the live chat. It's been a great day. We had a great audience today and great participation, as well. The more you guys chat, the more we get promoted out to the front page. So let's come back and do more of that. We'll be back here next week to figure out more of what's happening with the news and everything that's going on with it. But as for me, I gotta take off. I gotta take off in a bit more hurry than I usually do. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other. We will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Love to see you all, and take care. Bye-bye. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.